Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Risking It All, a new podcast where we will speak to a new local business owner every week, talking about the highs and lows and successes and challenges of running your own business. On this week's episode, we're going to be having a chat among ourselves. We've got 3 co-hosts, myself, Andy McDade and Barry Jolly. Right, I'm going to hand over to Andy and he's going to kick off today's interviews.
Alright, so just go have a wee chat with Barry and find out Barry's sort of life story, background and how he's got to this point running his own business. Barry, I feel like you just start with your childhood and education. What was that sort of like for you?
Aye, well, hi everybody. Kick us off here. So, childhood education. Well, I'm obviously Barry. I'm from Uddingston, Glasgow. I grew up in Uddingston all my life, still there to this day. And childhood was great. Parents, my dad was an engineer. Mum worked in a garage and then worked in Motorola for MD that remembers that up in East Kilbride. And I've got a twin sister. Thankfully, she's took her my looks with her as well. And I've got an older sister, and we had a great childhood, mate. So
was this always something you'd like aspired to run your own business, or how's that sort of happened for you?
I do. I'm not one of these people that would say that I wanted to be a business owner when I was a young guy. I think up until my mid-20s, I would say I probably floated through life to a certain extent. I didn't really know. I didn't have a concrete vision of what I wanted to do. Growing up, I was just quite a laid back person, I would say. My twin sister was a mental one. I was quite chilled, which is still true to this day, I would say. So I grown up just quite happy go lucky. Obviously going through school, I was an okay academic, I would say. I wasn't setting the world alight. I done all right in school. I just wasn't someone who really studied or applied myself. I just kind of got myself
floated through.
Floated through is probably the best way to look at my early life. Really, I was never a early onset entrepreneur or anything like that. I just kind of floated about.
And that was no teenage businesses then.
No, I wasn't a teenage sort of whiz kid or anything like that. I was just quite happy.
So what was your sort of career before Jolly Media Marketing then?
So probably going back to the education point then. So when I finished, I went to Holy Cross High School in Hamilton and finished there. Didn't have a clue what I was going to do. Never even thought about it. Obviously, as I say, my dad was an engineer. I tended to do a little bit better at maths and physics in school. So, put 2 and 2 together. I thought, right, I'll go to uni and do physics. Which I went to Strathclyde Uni, and there'll be a theme here when I talk about university and me, but I was an absolute dreadful student.
I didn't know it was physics you'd done actually.
Aye, well, it changes pretty quickly, to be honest. So I done a year of physics at Strathclyde. I was lucky to be there half the time. Just had my head elsewhere. I was more Anvil Sundays and the Uddingston were in full swing then. My attendance was shocking. And after a year of that, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And went and done mechanical engineering at the University of West of Scotland, sorry. Again, probably just thinking, if my dad's an engineer, I'll maybe be an engineer.
What the fuck is mechanical engineering?
You're asking somebody that studied it for 2 years, and I probably can't tell you fuck all about it.
Engineering the screws and bolts, I don't know.
So my early life, and obviously late teenager, early 20s, was just as a failed student, really. I got through 3 years, didn't get a degree, got a diploma, and just went, that's enough for me. I can't hack. It's funny, see, when I look back at university and I think about where I'm now in my life and, got onto the business and how I've studied and learned and that, but I just really emphasise with youngsters now having to pick what you're going to do for the rest of your life at that age. I think it's a hell of a decision, and it probably took me to my mid-20s to even have enough drive and concentration to even learn anything properly.
Aye.
But obviously that's me. I'm just that's the way I am. But it's a hard choice when you're that age.
Oh, definitely, mate.
I don't know whether part of that is like, I've spoken about this a lot, but it's like with university being free in Scotland, I don't know whether a lot of people go down that path just because they think, I don't quite know what I want to do. I've got the grades to go to uni. It doesn't cost me anything other than a bit of well-being.
It's prolonging that childhood almost for some people, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think in my case, I think it definitely prolonged my childhood because I was a student. I wasn't applying myself. I was out partying, blah blah blah, and I didn't have any responsibility. So for me, that rings true. I think for a lot of people, they've picked the right choice. They go to uni and it's what they like and it works, and that's great. But for anybody who doesn't do that, it's not the end of the world.
No, you just keep going with it.
Aye.
You're still young when you're finished.
Mm-hmm. Just keep going till you find something you like. And I didn't quite do that either. When I finished uni, I'll get into insurance. So like my professional background's a wee bit. It's certainly
mechanical engineer to insurance.
It certainly wasn't a straight line to marketing, put it that way. So that was my childhood growing up and my education. I got a diploma in mechanical engineering, and to be honest, I'm surprised I even get in. To be honest.
So insurance, who was that for? Was that a big company? Where were you positioned in the sort of market? What were you doing there?
So as far as my professional life goes, before I got into insurance, the first job I ever had was in Morrison's in Hamilton, right? And I look back at it, I actually quite enjoyed it, stacking shelves. My twin sister worked there as well. And it was good. It was introduction to working.
Aye. It's a rite of passage for your first teenage job.
Getting my like £60-70 a week, I felt like I was, flying. And I went for there and I worked in British Gas, which was unfortunately where I met this person here, which is kind of stuck with me to this very day.
Everybody's worked in British Gas.
I'm not.
So I worked in British Gas, selling kitchen appliance cover.
For British Gas.
Yeah, so anybody in the Uddingston area could probably relate to that, about the high commission outbound sales.
Even I know about the CAC and I didn't work there.
So going through my £70 a week to kitchen appliance care was like, I was a rock star for a couple of years. But yeah, ultimately British Gas, I left there. I actually done a wee job in Dunelm as well.
Right.
Worked in Dunelm, come back to my stacking shelves. This is all during university. And then for there, I joined an insurance company called NFU Mutual. And for that point, I was there for 10 years at NFU.
So that was your first proper career as such, rather than just having a job where you're about.
And it wasn't a career to start with as well, Andy. When I joined NFU, I was still studying university. Doing my usual floating about, not having a clue what I wanted to do, and I got into insurance, and first job was a sales and service associate, I think it was called. People phone you up, need to do this with insurance, you would help them. And I think it was the first place I properly got into that were just really good with their staff and their people, and I just settled in quite quickly. And throughout, when I look at my working life and my educational life up until after my mid-20s, even in all those jobs I mentioned there, I always applied myself fully when it came to work.
Aye.
When it came to my early university career, it was a complete opposite. So, when I went to NFU, I just kind of applied myself, and when I stopped uni, I went full-time, and for the next few years, I just started building up my skills in the insurance game.
And it's good work for a big company like that, where they help you as well. They put you on courses, they sort of educate you, and they build you up at the same time as you're working there and making a career. It goes hand in hand with NFU Mutual's a massive company, obviously. Yeah. It's a good culture.
Oh, definitely. I think obviously at the end of the day, you're working in a call centre, right? Mm-hmm. And having worked in the British Gas call centre, which was sell, outbound, got into insurance, which was an inbound call centre, and they invested time in you. I couldn't have been any rougher when I get in there. I didn't know anything. Through the years when I went full time, I started learning how to coach people, started learning how to, all the fun bits with insurance or any regulated industry, things like compliance and all that. But I was always more interested in systems. You know, I was always a kind of techie person without really realising it. So I kind of worked my way from part-time in insurance to full-time in insurance to off the phones, being a manager. I managed a team in NFU Mutual. And then that was kind of my first half of my career there. And then after that, they introduced a CRM into the equation, and that was my kind of, you know, leapfrog into the technology system side of things. And when I started a job in NFU Mutual as a CRM consultant, that's pretty much the same time I started Jolly Media on the side.
So was that a bit of a eureka moment for you, a sort of light bulb?
Yeah, so like when I moved off the phones and moved off the selling and moved off the customer service and started working with CRM adoption, how people use systems, how they ran pipelines, how they got sales, instantly I think it was a week into that, I thought, I'm not going back to my old job. You know, I was like, that consulting, you know, get out to see people, meet business owners, figure out how they're doing things, figure out how they can improve. That was just always in my, you know, that was the minute I started doing that, I thought, yeah, this is where I need to be. And then from, just to kind of round off the NFU Mutual chapter, you know, they were a great company to work for. I met some brilliant people throughout there, you know, from my time in Glasgow. I covered, in my CRM job, I covered the northwest of England. So, as a sort of mid-20-year-old, that was a massive job for me, I think, because when I look at it, I'd only ever dealt with people in Glasgow. I was only ever on the phone. As a CRM, it was a change specialist was the title. It was a consultant. So in that northwest role, I was on my own, getting parachuted into businesses, speaking with the business owner. You know, this wee Glaswegian guy just popping about the northwest. You know, kind of winging it for the first 6 months. Didn't really know what I was doing. I think that really was a making of me in regards to where I am now. Because I remember the first trip I went on, Andy. Right, so I went to a place called Shrewsbury, which is in Shropshire, right, and never been anywhere like this in my puff. And the CRM that the company was integrating wasn't well received. So I just kind of swanned into this place to go and meet this agency owner, who've actually ended up having quite a good relationship with. But probably for the first 45 minutes in my first client engagement, I sat and get absolutely ripped to bits, like shreds. Like, guy absolutely demolished me, demolished the system. I was just sitting there like, fuck, like, what have I got myself into? Like, Shrewsbury's 4.5 hours from my house. I've drove down here. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? And then again, when I came away for that, I was like, well, this is the art of a consultant. You know, how do you win heart and minds? You know, and that really, that job I think was a big moment for me.
Big learning curve.
Yeah,
I think, see, just come back to the old. I can't help it, right? I'll take stick for this, but I don't give a fuck. Going back to the old originating in call centre. I think there's something about starting in frontline contact centre that's like, if you can survive that. Like, I seen a podcast recently where Gary Folds talks about this, and it's so true. Like, it's such a fucking tough gig because customers are phoning you to whinge more often than not. They're phoning to complain about something. Yeah. A lot of them are arseholes. They're just rude. And every second of your day is accounted for. Like, literally, you come in, you've got a schedule. It tells you from 9 o'clock to 9:15 you're doing a briefing. From 9:15 to 10:30 you're taking calls. You've got a 5-minute piss break in between, and it's like, if you're over that 5 minutes, you've got a gaffer like, where you been? Go back on the phones. I just think like, folk like to fucking slag it off nowadays, I think, the contact centre environment, but it's a solid environment to like start, especially if you're starting off at 18, 19, you don't have a clue about life. And I've met a lot of people that have like originated in contact centre and went on to do great things. I just think there's something about the resilience that builds in you that really sets you up like good and proper for whatever it is that you've got to go into, whether it's another role within the same environment, setting up off in your own business.
I couldn't agree more, Brian, to be honest. I think when I look back at the skills I've learned through my contact centre career in insurance or with British Gas, you know, like, you learn how to deal with people. First of all, you learn how to sell, you learn how to, show empathy, you learn how to, I wouldn't know half the stuff I know now if I didn't go through that career path. So yeah, I think there's always a negative connotation with call centres, and you would have seen more than me, to be fair. There will be ones out there that are pretty rough. I wouldn't say that about NFU. I think it was a really good environment. But yeah, again, just finishing off my NFU career, I think the CRM consulting role, done that for a couple of years, travelled the Northwest. I was away constantly. At that time, I was building up Jolly Media at the same time, and then I got another job as a process improvement consultant, which was my first proper job in the head office NFU. So that was, again, just brilliant people. I really, really encouraged my development. They put me through all sorts of qualifications. Prince 2 project management, I'm diploma in consultancy. That was all funded by NFU Mutual. So again, looking back at it, set me up massively, and probably showed me quite a lot of the way how to treat people as well.
Aye,
just invest in your people, and ultimately they invested in me and I buggered off, which is again. But and again, when that happened, there was never any animosity. They were so happy for me and wished me all the best. And
they still had 10 good years.
10 years.
Do you know what I mean? So it's quid pro quo.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously you were then. So what's the sort of time frame where you were running Jolly Media Marketing and with a full time heavy on job with NFU? That must have been taxing.
So probably thinking about the start of Jolly Media Marketing. So the business started, it was my Uncle Dan, which I'll reference quite a bit today. He took me and my cousin Chris, that you know well, down to a marketing conference.
That rogue.
So he took us down to a marketing conference in London. He basically came to my dad and said, look, I'm learning about affiliate marketing. I want to get the boys involved. I think they would be, interested in it. And as he done, he just kind of talked everybody into it and had this vision and took us down. And me, Chris, and him went down to London. I remember it was one of these stereotypical affiliate marketing conferences. It was like Traffic Millionaire or something like that. It was called. It was like all heavy on finances and about becoming a millionaire, basically. But so we went to this conference, and I just remember listening to someone talk about sales funnels and lead generation and building landing pages, and I just remember thinking, holy fuck, what is this? Like, this is amazing. Like, what's going on here? And we left that business and we started doing affiliate marketing. So I would build all the landing pages. My uncle was like the face of the affiliate program. It was, Dan Jolly's, buy this course about learning about how to run a business from him. And that's how we get started. So that was roughly just before I started my job as a CRM consultant. That was all happening in the background. And from again, thinking about my university career, where nothing really interested in me, the minute I started learning about digital marketing and lead generation, and
you've got synapses going, and
that was it. I was reading everything I could do, watching videos, learning as much as I could. I was just that was me. And then at that point, we were running Facebook ads campaign, YouTube ads campaigns, and that was the start of my journey, really. It was that one trip. So we done the affiliate marketing, and this is quite a funny story, actually. So the conference we went to was for someone who was selling a product from a company called Mobe, M-O-B-E. And probably about a year after that, it turned out that Mobe was a complete fraud, right? And I'm not even kidding. I say it's funny, but it's actually quite bad. So Mobe was a guy, Matt Lloyd, in the FCA in America had found out that what he was selling, or what he was getting people like us to sell for him, was a complete and utter pyramid scheme. Aye, it was just nonsense. It didn't, like, and we'd at the time, Uncle Dan, we'd invested thousands of pounds, so we were one of the people that lost the money.
Ideal starting business.
Aye, so and this, it's funny when I say about Jolly Media, that was when we started marketing. We didn't actually incorporate and launch Jolly Media until after this happened.
Right.
Because when that happened and we realised that this affiliate thing wasn't working, I said to my uncle, I said, look, yes, we've lost thousands of pounds, right? Yes, it's shit, but I know how to
There's
market.
somebody here.
I know how to market now. I know how to do the marketing game. Why don't we launch a marketing company? And it took him all of like 0.1% of a second to agree to that, because the minute I said that, he was like, right, let's go.
Do it.
And that's when we incorporated Jolly Media Marketing at that time. And we just started going out and trying to get clients and starting to run marketing campaigns, and that was kind of the start of everything.
Who was your first client?
I think our first client was actually one of my uncle's businesses. Which is a
classic way to get a first client.
Because my uncle's a big inspiration, big driving factor behind Jolly Media Marketing. He was an entrepreneur. He was just someone who was always trying to find something new to build and launch. And he had multiple businesses, and he got involved in a pensions refund specialist business, and that was one of our first clients actually. So we generated leads for people who wanted to claim for pension refunds. And as I sit here as someone who does marketing in the renewables industry, you can see the journey I've went on to get there. So I think that was one of our first clients. One of our other first clients is still with us as well, which is a solar company in Bells Hill. They've been with us for years. We had some kitchens, bathrooms, all random sort of industries at the start.
So obviously you said you're focused in the renewables energy. Did that sort of organically come about, or did you decide that was where you were going to take the company?
I think looking at it, I think the first few years that I was doing Jolly Media, my cousin Chris helped us for a while, and then he went and done his other things, and ultimately for the first 3 years of trading, I was very had 3 or 4 clients. I was working full time. My daughter was born as well. Isabella, she's 2.5 now, and I was just rammed with everything. And I didn't really. I probably didn't start marketing my business and looking for new customers until Brian joined. Everything was organic, word of mouth. So I was very much and that suited me, Andy, because it helped me build my skill set. I
was getting stressed out just talking about job, new business, baby, like that is heat blowing.
I threw in that diploma in consultancy and top of that.
I remember that.
Which honestly, see, when I look back at that, I'm happy I done it, because it did help. But mother of God, man, never again.
How'd you manage it?
Never again. That was, when in the early days of my business, while I was studying and working, I was up in the morning with the baby, into work, and then probably midnight plus every single night, either working or studying. And anybody that's out there doing that's got a side gig and has got a family, hang in there, trust me, because it is tough. I feel your pain with it. I kind of had enough resilience in my life at that time where I managed to get through it, but it's fucking hard. And that at that point, going back to your question, Andy, did I think renewables was the one? For those first few years, I didn't really think about much apart from just delivering for who we had, and doing a good job there. The renewables thing probably came after Brian joined, and basically we just started thinking, right, out of all these industries I've worked in, what are we the best at? And let's just focus on that. That was probably how that came about.
With HIMM, have you encountered any challenges? Obviously, we've talked about Chris and Brian's on board.
I think challenges wise, I've kind of spoke about the time sensitivity and the time pressure. That was without a doubt the biggest challenge I had to overcome. Getting in the business full time has helped with that. Probably the biggest challenge was when we lost my uncle as well, which was massive. And that spurred me on to just build it and get better and keep doing what we do. So that was tough.
It's a really hard time for everybody, but that's that's not just a business thing. That's impacting your whole
full family was turned upside down. Really. So
that's hard.
That's without a doubt the worst point.
Trumps everything.
But I think challenges. There's always challenges in business. I think there's always learnings, and you just need to keep going on and on. I think that was a key thing my uncle installed in us all. Like, no, everything's got to work straight away. No. Just keep positive, keep going, and that's kind of, even through the midnight and 1 o'clock a.m. fucking studying about consultancy and eyes bags into here. I just remembered him, just keep going, it'll get better.
What about moving forward? Where you seeing the future for JMM? What's your plans? Or
Aye, good question. I think the future of JMM, now that we're in this niche and we're in renewables, it's just all about continuing to be the best we can be in that space. You know, I've got aspirations now that, you know, I want to pass on the knowledge that we possess and build our team and start to look at foreign markets, which is another area I'm interested in, and, you know, prove ourselves to be the best lead gen in that area in the UK, and then branch out to the US and further afield. I've always had a thing in my head about having a franchise model for Jolly Media, you know, and having offices across the globe, and being able to sort of teach people and how to do marketing activity, and that's kind of where my strategy's unfolding.
excellent.
So aye, that's where we're heading into the future. I suppose that's plenty from me, everybody. I'll move on to Andy, because I'm really keen to hear about your story, Andy. I know we've known each other for years, but I don't know half of it. So if you can, mate, take us back to the start of your sort of, you know, business career with McDade's Coaches. And
we'll go back. Well, obviously, McDade's Coaches is a family business, but throughout my education in that, growing up, I was always adamantly, I'm not working in the buses. I'm not doing it. I'm doing things my own way. And, you know, at school I was really quite good. Get straight ones in standard grade and that, 5 hires, left Cardinal Newman with 5 hires. Was really flying, and went to uni, and then sort of did the same as you. I started off in uni doing chemical engineering. We loved chemistry at school. Was like, I'm going to do that. Brilliant. First year, get through it, and was like, oh my God, the maths in this is quite hard. And I started second year, and like for the first month or two of second year, I'm just sitting in the maths lectures like, the guy's now talking Spanish to me. It just went above me. And at that point in time, I sort of had to go, this isn't going to work out. I'm never going to get to the 4th year of this and be able to do it. So then I left chemical engineering, and then both my mum and dad said you had to get a degree. And I'm like, what do I need to get a degree for? So I went back and did the classic social sciences degree. The waste of time degree that you go and do, and I did politics and sociology because, you know, I liked a good argument in that. The highlight part of that course actually was Tommy Sheridan was one of my, he wasn't a lecturer, he was one of my tutors. So he used to go to like the politics tutorial, and it was Tommy Sheridan who was the tutor, which was quite funny. Don't know, like men or C-list politics, political celebrity. That was quite interesting, but I was the same as you. By that point, I was going out all the time. I had 3 jobs, and decided going to uni, and I never went to uni. You know, and when I say I had 3 jobs, I worked as a drama tutor, as a youth worker, and worked in a pub in Uddingston as well. So I had quite a bit of disposable income. I actually found I was cleaning out my mum's house a couple of months ago and found old wage slips for when I was a drama tutor in that. So you're talking 2010, 11, 12 sort of time. I was getting paid $7.25 an hour. Back then, I had a lot of money to burn, man.
But do you know how I talk about this a lot, right? See, when I think about like the times in my life where I felt the most loaded, it's probably when I had my first job and lived with my mum.
Aye.
I felt like I had more money then than I've ever had the rest of my life, because you don't really have bills. You don't
have
never
any
get a stupid phone bill or something.
Wains. Aye. Oh, it was brilliant. At one point, I did a semester in uni where I was trying to make up credits to go for like second year into third year or something. So I suspended my credits. I think it was like £200 I paid to suspend my credits for a term, and I did 1 class. I mean, that was an insane 6 months. It was just party central. But you know, that was, I loved when I was doing sort of youth work and drama work and all that sort of stuff. I was just winding wains up. I was like, I'm really good at this. But the problem I had with that was, it was the people that I was working with, it wasn't dead sustainable. You would have 6-month contracts here, and then you'd be looking for another job. And I was like, I need something a bit more sustainable. And I hunted about a bit, and you know, my mum took a wee bit no well years ago now, and she asked me to come in and work in the office for a bit, just doing invoices, answering the phone, taking messages. It was total tea boy type stuff, and at that point in time I was still like, I don't want to do this. And for my background, the reason why it was McDade's coaches was brilliant for my family, because it gave us a nice sort of life, but there was so much family toxicity all centred around about it, so I was just like, I want no part of that.
Yeah. Was that your primary reason? Because obviously when you were going into uni, you were going into that with the mindset that I'm not going to go to
I'm
McDade's.
not going to go there.
Was it the family dynamic, or was there any other reasons?
No, it was a family dynamic. It was, you know, working with your family's hard. Working with your family when none of your family actually like each other is nigh on impossible. Yeah. So it was really, really difficult. And I was sort of hanging about in the business, and at the time, the guy who was the transport manager, unfortunately got cancer and he passed away. So there was these sorts of holes appearing in my family business, and my mum and my dad were just like, can you help us a bit? So I sort of landed in this role that I wasn't really want to do, was want to stay away from it. And at the time I didn't really have anything else to go and do, so I was sort of stuck with it. Stuck's maybe the wrong word, but I was there, and I was like, all right, okay, getting a wage, doing this, we'll see what happens. And my dad basically said, oh, if you're going to be here and you're going to work here, you're no starting as somebody in the office, somebody in management. That's not what's happening. So I went out and get my bus licence and went and started as a driver, essentially, which I believe is the only way you can learn. You know, I mean, there's no point in getting in and saying, I know everything and I'm going to be the guy, I'm going to be the man, and I'm going to tell people that just doesn't get you anywhere. So I did a couple of years as a driver, same stuff as everybody else, and you know, it's good. Like, it's no the worst job in the world. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to say it's the best job in the world, but it definitely wasn't the worst job that I've ever done anyway.
And see when you say bus driver, because what was it, always like school runs, or was it gigs, or what sort of stuff?
So it was everything. So at that point in time, we had a contract with Motherwell College. So we picked up kids all across the Central Belt and took them out to Motherwell College. But the run that I was on, my first pickup was like 7:15 in the morning through Barhead end of Glasgow, and I worked through Rutherglen, Cambuslang, some people in Blantyre, and then went up to the college. So it was an early start. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just tossing about. It was proper work. You'd go do that, then go and you'd have a school run after you've wrapped the college reins off, and then you maybe start firing into, you know, a wee swimming bath run, or it was just everything that we do. At weekends, you'd be wedding runs, football buses. You know, it was just what it is. Coalface.
I would imagine that, like, you wouldn't have known this at the time, but now running the business, that must actually make life easier, just because you went through what they've went through, that empathy piece around, right, I get it, I've done it, like, let's have a chat about it, rather than, even myself, I've been in managerial positions before where I've never done the job of the people that you're managing, and life just is more difficult. It just is. It is.
It was so good for me, because it's helped me grow as an employer as well, and knowing the job that they've done. You know, the biggest piece of advice my dad ever gave me was never ask somebody to do a job you can't do yourself. Do you know what I mean? And there are some things. I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a trained mechanic, so I'll get mechanics that can do stuff I can't do, and I'll never be able to do it. But it's about the willingness to go and do it. Do you know what I mean? Bus comes in, I still do it now, buses are doing it Blackpool or that, or during the summer period, I'll be there, I'll be cleaning the buses out, I'll be emptying the toilets, I'll be washing the outside of them. You just need to knuckle down, and you need to be prepared to do whatever you're going to ask somebody else to do. Doesn't mean that you're doing it every day of the week or that's your primary role, but you need to be prepared to roll your sleeves up and get involved. In this industry, or in my industry especially, you need to be able to do that. But like you said, the empathy to have with your workforce, knowing what it's like to pick up 50 steaming drunk folk for a wedding and there's only 30 of them coming out and you need to get them, like, you need to have that understanding what your staff are going through, or you can't deal with them appropriately or fairly.
And see, when you started, Andy, so obviously when you went into McDade's, you had this niggling bit in the back of your head about the dynamic and I don't want to get involved in that. When you get into it and you started working, you started doing it, did you see that come to fruition, or was it just...
Oh, it was torturous. It was honestly, mate. It was like years and years of arguments, like mainly between me and my dad. Like,
right.
Me and my dad would argue on the colour of that. That's white. He'd tell me it was black, and that's just the way it is. There's very few things we see eye to eye on. I never have seen eye to eye on. So it was constant arguments. And a bit like you, I went through some courses as well. So I went and I got my operator's licence. I went and got that. Did a train-the-trainer course so that I could train our drivers and stuff. So I developed myself as well to a point where I was like, I've did the coalface stuff. I've went and did some managerial courses. I was like, I'm now positioning myself where this is going to be my career. But at that point then, me and my dad were butting heads so often because he had his way of doing things, which I was like, that doesn't work anymore, Dad. Like, you can't just say that to people. You can't just do that. You have to have a process in place. We need to put a grievance. You need, all the stuff that their generation didn't have. It's just, that's what I'm doing. That's what you're saying. No, that's it. I say it goes, and I'm like, well, no anymore. It just can't be. I know you've always done it like that, but it just can't be. And we started to find a bit of a groove. But the bit of groove came because I took more of a lead role, and it was kind of you're going to need to step back. But I mean, that is a 4 or 5 year process. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it only happens because I start making decisions that go well. You know what I mean? When I start making calls, if they didn't go well, then he would have been like, you're a dick. We're doing it my way. I told you so. We're just going to stick to doing it this way. But once I start doing things and you start to see these wee improvements, I can go, oh, but look, this is how this is working. And, we've got this contract, or we've picked this bus up, or we're doing this. Or once you start to see the wee tiny victories with the things you're putting in place, then it starts to calm down a bit. But it was a long process, and it was hard. And that's not to say that me and my mum go on like a house on fire either. She just doesn't argue back as much. Do you know what I mean? There was lots of times where me and my dad would have storming arguments. My mum would just leave the office. Do you know what I mean? Or if me and my mum are arguing, she just leaves the office. She's just like away. But it's so intense having the people and in your work environment. Yeah. And the other really weird thing was I grew up around McDade's coaches. I was a wee boy running about playing in the buses, hence a half a thumb. Do you know what I mean? Like that was that. So there was loads of these staff, people that I had known since I was getting on school buses, that I was now their boss, I was now the person that was in charge. And that's a really strange sort of dynamic to work through as well, for being somebody that they've known all their life to then go, oh no, actually I'm the guy that's telling you what we're doing here.
I've got another question about that dynamic, but we're going to need to circle back to this half a thumb, right? Because for all the years I've known you, I didn't even know you had half a thumb. So what happened with that?
Did you not know? Aye. Oh, Mr. Mike, aye. So I was a wee boy, I was about, 3, 4, something like that, and my dad was supposed to be watching me as I was playing down in the yard, and my dad didn't watch me. I don't know what he'd done. He fucked off to do something, and I was literally playing on the buses, and I opened the emergency exit by the bus doors, and there was just a big gust of wind, and it just slammed shut, and my thumb was in it, and like the thumb fell off, and I only have half a thumb. So any time there's young kids doing like my wains or nephews or nieces or like piece of Andy's wains are doing, it is a standard joke. Make sure Andy's no watching them because shit like that happens. So,
See, circling back to that period where you're maybe starting to exert a wee bit more influence, things are going well, but your dad's still about and your dad's managed all of these people for a long, long time. You're starting to take over a wee bit more. That must have been a pretty difficult dynamic for the staff as well as you, I guess. So talk to us a bit about how that, like, I don't want to refer to it as a transition of power, but there must have been periods where maybe a staff member's been asked by your dad to do something, you've heard and went, I don't want it done that way. Like, how difficult was that?
It was difficult. It was really difficult. But the one thing that made it quite easy was my dad was never a 9 to 5 in the office type guy. He would be doing it at the start of the day, dish out some orders, saying this is what's needing done, we need this bus cleaned, that's gone there, and he'd go away for a couple of hours and come back down and have his lunch and see what was happening. So he was never I'm in the office 9 to 5, I'm managing from the chair, whereas I'm there in the office, I like to know what's happening, I like to float about, talk to people, see what's going on. That's always been my way, so that made it slightly easier, because then when he was like, right, I'm away up the road for a cup of tea, I'd just go right, see what was happening there. We'll do it this way. So that made it slightly easier. And then, my dad himself could sense what was happening and could see that I wasn't a dick. Could see that I wasn't going to just come in and blow all the money and burn it to the ground and go, all right, what happened to that? Did I make an arse yet? I don't know if there was an exact point where I can think of where I went, no, you're going to need to step back. I think it was a sort of casual realisation, and the thing that really clicked for my dad was he realised that he bought a place in India, you probably know that, he's got an apartment in India, and he realised that he could just go on holiday for 6 months of the year. So he would go away in October and come back in like February, March. We'd still phone in a couple of times a week or that, and what's happening at the same time is always happening. Dad's buses running, we're it's just what it is, you're not here, so I'm not going to spend 2 hours on the phone giving you a blow for the last 3 days. And that worked for him. That really helped me, and I'm like this is new where I get to start putting in what I want to happen, where I want to see the business go.
And see that tipping point where it was right, time for me to step away and you to step in. Was that something that you both kind of came to a natural conclusion, or was it driven by your dad? Or you, for that matter?
No, I think it was quite a natural conclusion for both of us. Like I say, like if you get to the point where you're handing your business over to somebody, that would be, because my dad started with a bus and I took over a company that was 30 vehicles, 40 odd staff, and he had built that on his own back, doing everything. So to then go, okay, I'm going to trust you with that is a big thing.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? And it was the fact that he was getting a wee bit out of it as well. He was getting hot. It was just, he could slow down. Do you know? So you're maybe talking 10, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. So my dad at that point would have been mid to late 60s, do you know what I mean? So he was at a point where naturally he was needing to slow down anyway. He couldn't keep doing what he was doing. So it just all fitted.
Yeah.
It just sort of clicked for us. I don't, if I didn't do it, I don't know what they would have done, because him and my mum couldn't have kept running the business at the size it is, and I don't, I'm effectively their pension plan, which is the way it's worked out. And it's just fine to do that.
So in terms of you take care of the business, you get through that and it's right, it's your gig, you can start to shape it the way that you want to shape it, take it in a direction that you want to take it in. Just having a think about some of the key successes that you've had since then, what are the things that you've maybe altered path on or changed that's then enabled you to have a wee bit more success that you're really proud of?
One of the biggest successes was the first time I bid for the Motherwell College contract. So that was a massive contract for us. and they did it in a 5-year cycle, and it came up, and I mean it was a massive undertaking to put together the routes and all the policies you had to have, the environmental policy, health safety, massive big document you had to go and give a presentation on it. I took questions, and I mean I'd have done that when I was maybe 24, 25, something like that. So that was a big deal for me to be the person who's fronting up, and I'm going to go. Because essentially, when you're doing that, I'm like, I'm going to go and get the business that's going to keep all these 30, 40 people employed and in a job. So it's no longer just, I'm going to be it's like, I need to make sure I can provide something that's going to provide these jobs for other people. Because as I said, I grew up with these folk. Do you know what I mean? There's people there that I've known all my life, and I now need to make sure that they can provide for their families. So that is it was a massive sort of stress and moment for me. And we won the contract. It was like brilliant, another 5 years. And it's that wee ticking box and going, oh no, I actually can do this. Really weirdly and bizarrely, the next time the contract came up, we didn't win it. There was reasons for that. Partial failings on my parts, but also just by that point, the people that were running the college, my face didn't fit. They wanted somebody else in, and it was quite apparent that that's what was happening. But when that happened, it then allowed us to sort of pivot and move and change what we've done. We got rid of loads of minibuses, we brought in more coaches, and we've just went on. You know what I mean? We grew bigger than what we were before. Not in terms of the size of the company, just our actual turnover and with that. We just changed what we've done with a lot more time to do private hires. The way the coaching industry works, people only have a set amount of times where they can work, like I said, time frame that they can work in, set amount of hours they can spend driving. So the college was very labour intensive.
Right.
So when we switched for that, we could then go and do other things with private hires, work more at night. So it freed us up to then change the way the business moved. We went big into weddings at that point in time, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it worked for us. That was a big moment where, when it first happens, you go, oh my God, we've not got this contract anymore. How we got to do this? And you just have to quickly get moving and going, no, we need to change it. We need to move, like you said, Barry. If you stand, you need to keep going.
Aye.
There's only one thing for it.
Couple of follow-ups for me, if that's all right. Just the first one is talk a bit about like your own family dynamics. You've obviously got a wife, couple of kids, so running a business that has 40 staff members, like going through all the turmoils and the challenges. How do you just balance that between being kind of super dad, super husband, and super MD?
It's really difficult. Do you know what I mean? And I'm saying it's really difficult. It was really difficult. When our kids were younger, my wife didn't go back to work. She went back to uni and changed her career path as well. So that was quite challenging for her with 2 young kids to go back to uni to become a nurse, which made her really stressed out, which in turn made me stressed out. And it's really difficult to manage. Like I said to you, I'm in the office, I'm there all the time. At one point I was going in and opening up at like 6:30 in the morning and leaving at 5:30 at night. And it got really stressful, and Jill was a bit like, this just isn't going to work. You can't do 60-hour weeks Monday to Friday and then still be doing the weekend sometime, and then you go to the summer and you just work for 3 months solid from May to July. So like, you need to change this. Sorry, excuse me. And at that point, it was a real conscious change of how can I, what can I do to change it? Because our management structure was me, my mum, my dad, and I'm like, that's not really working, because he's away 6 months at a time. My mum worked 3-4 days a week, and you're doing everything. So I got myself a management team, Sep System Lissa and Pete, one of our other pals, put him through his operator's licence, and that's what I had to do, was just bring together a new management team, train them up in how I wanted to do things, and it is don't do it this way, this is the way we need to do it, we'll do it, well, you know, don't organise the drivers like that, Pete, you do it like this, and train them in how I wanted the business to run. And that was sort of 2-3 years, and then now I'm at the point where I go, I don't need to be in the office every day. I can go and I can make a podcast, I can go away on holiday, I can drop the reins off at school, I can pick the reins up for school, because you put in place the structures that are going to support it. And it's not the most difficult thing once you've got it working. It just follows on and just works. You know what I mean? Once you've got the drivers in place, once you've got the vehicles, you've got the contracts, it's then just motors on down the line, and I just oversee it at the top and make sure everything's working all right. See where the new opportunities are going to be, what new vehicles we're going to buy, who we're going to work with, and that's how you make the family life work. I couldn't make the way I was working at work, so I had to go and change it, had to change the business essentially, and it just wasn't going to work, because there is no way, you know, having somebody in there at the crack of dawn, you need to have somebody there to lock the gate up at night. So you either need to do it, or you need to find a way to manage it.
And final one for me, I guess, is just, what does the future hold for McDade's? What are you thinking?
We're just keeping going the way we're going. You know, people always ask, do you know what to grow your business? And I don't want to grow the size of it. I don't want to grow the scale of it. If anybody wants to pay me more money to hire a coach, I'm all for that. But that is the only growth that I want to see, is just more money for the same output, which is the ideal business growth that everybody wants. Do you know what I mean? And but with mine's, it's finding ways to make the same vehicle, the same driver, earn 2 or 3 times the same day. Do you know what I mean? And that's very, very difficult, but it can be done.
Yeah.
And it's finding the opportunities to do that is the way that we're going to go.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you, Andy, is obviously for the future. What do you see around the impact of emissions and renewable technology? Do you think that's going to really change the bus industry in, say, 10, 20 years' time?
It is already doing it. It's really bizarre, because we, in the coach industry, we've been at the sort of forefront of driving down emissions. So what comes out of the high standard engine you get now is a Euro 6 engine, and what comes out of the exhaust of a Euro 6 engine, you could almost breathe itself. There's hardly any toxins. They're that drilled down, but what that does is it lessens the output or the mileage that you get from a tank of diesel. So although what you're putting out the back end is really clean, you're having to use more of the natural resources to get in. And then they've started on with electrification, which doesn't really work for the coach industry. You know, you guys both have your cars. What's your range on them?
300 miles-ish.
So 300 miles on a full tank of diesel on a coach, we are doing 600-700 miles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then when you put the weight of the coach on your battery, it just doesn't go. So I'm not a lover of electrification on my industry, because I can't see where that goes. We have got such clean engines now, and we've been building them for 20 years to get to this point, and somebody's then in government went, but why don't we just change the goalposts? You're going, oh no, man. we're at this point. So that's where we're going with electrification. There's plenty of operators do it. There's plenty of companies do it. We did apply for a grant recently, but we weren't successful. We were going to have a nice new electric bus driving down the street Sunday, but we didn't get the grant for it. But the cost of these vehicles is insane. So the cost of the coach that we were looking at to buy with our grant was £350,000.
Is that for an electric coach?
For an electric coach. Comparable coach with a diesel engine in it, you're talking 250 or there or thereabouts. So it's a bit...
Big difference.
It's a big difference.
And what's the range on the electric ones, did it say?
200, 300 miles. So that's...
Even a bigger difference then.
Do you know what I mean? So that's where you go. And looking at, we did, because we went and we looked at it and sat down, looked at what our work was, and we're like, do you know what? We can make 200, 250 miles work for 80% of what our work is. So it makes sense to have it as something. You know, if the government's going to give you a big chunk of change and say, there's some money, I'm going to help you, you try and take the leg up. Do you know what I mean? You always take the leg up for the government if it's going to be there. But I would never be rushing headlong into it with just my own dough and need a help with that. My personal thing is I think hydrogen's going to be the fuel of coaches anyway. I'm not a mechanical engineer.
You're a chemical engineer,
Chemical
actually.
engineer.
Yeah, I suppose we'll need to see what happens then.
Where you go with that one. But I think that's kind of me if there's no other questions.
No more for me.
Yeah, all good.
So we're going to then, Brian, have you, what gives your story then?
Aye, so I guess I come up in a fairly stereotypical working class environment. Mum Jackie, dad Brian, but local celebrity known as Finno. They split up when I was 3. I was probably pretty fortunate, to be honest, on reflection, in the sense that, you know, I'd been married with kids now and having a lot of mates that have married and kids. Often when it goes tits up, it can get quite poisonous. I don't know whether it was just that I was always shielded for that, but I always just get a sense that the relationship between both sets of my family always remained quite strong, and probably does do to this day. Like, somebody passes away in my mum's side of the family, my dad's side will still go to funerals, etc. So it's always been pretty amicable. Brought up in the rough streets of View Park, which was a tough upbringing. It's just a stereotypical scheme, I guess, as we would refer to it in Scotland, but it's pretty tough. I remember just having to deal with bullying every single day, like every hour, every day, pretty much, in school, outside of school. And as much as that was tough at the time, it's probably just formed part of like the makeup that I've had in later life, and to a certain extent helped build that resilience and has served me well. So I lived with my mum Monday to Friday, went to my dad's at the weekends. My gran and granda, my mum's parents, lived literally the street next to us, so I probably spent just as much time in their house as I did my mum's. They actually served to inspire me quite a bit. Like, my gran was a cleaner, my granda worked for G4 Security for years, and then laterally became a taxi driver. But despite just being, I guess, so working class, they always just seemed to have an amazing life. Like, going on holiday a couple of times a year, they just seemed to make it work. And I remember being an adult and sitting down with my granda and him just having a conversation with me about it around, you know, you don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. You just need to work your arse off and you'll be able to build for yourself a life that, you know, you're happy with. So I was devastated, to be honest, when I lost my grandparents. They were essentially an extension of both my parents. I spent just as much time with them as I did with my mum and my dad. But so times were tough at times. You know, we never ever really had a lot of money. But again, you know, looking back on that, has probably helped to serve some of the resilience that I've just carried on in later life. We could whiz through my education pretty quickly here. I, unlike Andy and Barry, was just a bit of a rogue in school, both primary and high school.
Some great stories, but
some great stories.
Save that for an episode, I think.
I was the epitome of just class clown, to be honest. Just floated my way through school with zero interest in anything academic, refused to study, skipped exams. And I actually left high school early to join the army, which not a lot of people know about. I left high school in 5th year. Had this crazy idea in my head that I wanted to join the army and just go and travel a bit. they knocked me back, thankfully. So I then went back to school pretty quickly to finish my 6th year, and then infamously done a 7th year in high school, much to the behest of my new wife, who was at university and having to tell people that our boyfriend at the time was still at school. So I unsurprisingly and predictably left my 7th year with fuck all, left school with practically nothing. I've got, you know, a couple of standard grades, a couple of hires, but I certainly didn't have enough to go to college or uni, which kind of suited me. I had zero interest in continuing my academic career, let's call it. So straight into the workforce for me. I worked in my first proper job was in Quick Fit in Tannockside. My new wife got me the job. I did nearly get her sacked in that job. Again, the class kick clown theme continued, to be honest, for the first maybe couple of years of my working environment. I'll not get into that in too much detail, or I'll get my arse kicked. But I just, even in Quick Fit, as much as I was a bit of a class clown, like, I think for day one of joining my team, I always stood out in the sense that I was never just happy to hit a target. I was always trying to exceed a target that was set. And then my aunt worked at British Gas at the time. She says, look, you've been doing that for a year or so. We pay you more up here. Get your ass up. I've got you an interview. Joined British Gas when I was 18, 19. And I guess, you know, that thing that just always continued to drive me to want to do more continued. So I didn't last in the phones very long at British Gas. I was a couple of years in before I stepped into my first managerial position at 21, 22. Naturally didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. I had a team of 10, 15 people, some of whom had worked for 30 years, 40 years. And I was then just suddenly the person that was responsible for telling them, you know, what to do and how to do it. And probably for the first 10 years of managing people, if I'm really honest, just made a complete arse of it. I'd done nothing but make mistakes, couldn't ever get it right. And it's just school of hard knock stuff. Nowadays there's courses and all the other stuff that folk get sent through before, you know, they're given a team of 10 or 15 people to manage. But I just learned through making an arse of things and going, that was pretty tough. Like, I really need to try and not make that mistake again. And in the end, spent 15 years at British Gas across a whole bunch of different roles. Ended up in a fairly kind of senior position, just not too far away from the studio in City Park in Glasgow. I was an operations manager there, looked after, you know, 100, 150 people, which actually was probably one of the most enjoyable jobs that I've done, just because of the people. Like, it was just a fucking great laugh. You really had to have thick skin. But I think because I came up in the scheme and just, you know, it just played into my hand perfectly. And then laterally made a bit of a pivot into change management at British Gas, and then was made redundant in 2019. We just had a wee girl at the time. And probably for the next maybe 3 years, just kind of went from job to job. You know, I had a period, probably a 3-year period, where I was just changing jobs every 6-7 months, trying to find my new thing. Worked in an outsourced contact centre for a bit, which is fucking wild. Like, it's just wild. I maybe no name the particular outsourcers that I worked in, but it's just at that point in my career, like, it's a young man's game basically. It was just full of young people starting out, and I just didn't have it in me to do it. Like, again, I'll not get into it in too much detail, but
see, obviously that journey you went on, Brian. You mentioned about being made redundant, having your daughter, and then going on this like crusade to find your next thing. What was going through your head as you were going from role to role?
See, to be honest, like, I was never particularly like, oh, I really need to find my next thing. I always just thought that my career in contact centre had longevity, and whether it was Sainsbury's, B&Q, British Gas, didn't matter. Call centre was a call centre. To be honest, like, the 3 years that I left BG and floated from call centre to call centre, I probably increased my salary by close to kind of 40% in that period. So one of the biggest regrets that I had until I joined you at JMM was like, I shouldn't have spent this long at British Gas. I should have done a couple of years and fucked off and just done that every couple of years and built my salary up that way. But I was maybe just a bit of a lost soul. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do next. Joined McMillan Cancer Support. And, you know, naturally just an amazing bunch of people. You know, spent a couple of years there in the end. Highly rewarding work, but very taxing work just due to the nature of what you're dealing with. So I kind of always knew in my head that there wasn't longevity there. I couldn't do that for a long time. I always had a wee itch about trying to do something myself, but probably listened to that voice in my head that just told me, you can't do that. Like, don't be daft. You've not got the resources, the money, the time. You've got a full-time job. It's pretty full on. And then I can't quite remember how, to be honest, but picked up a chat with Barry. The twos initially were looking at setting something up separately to JMM around the whole consultancy piece, consulting with small and medium-sized enterprises. So we had a couple of meetings about that, a couple of catch-ups. Naturally, I was inquisitive and had questions about his digital marketing agency that had been trying to get off the ground with his family for a couple of years. Done a bit of research into it, done a wee course, and thought I quite like that. I'm quite intrigued. It's all about sales and marketing, which is ultimately where I've spent 20 years of my career. And then just had a conversation with Barry and agreed to join him on the side of my 95 and just try and help get it off the ground. That was in August 22. And then similar to Barry, probably for the next year and 4 or 5 months until I was able to join JMM full time. My structure was just, you know, wee bit of time with the family in the morning, do the 95, dinner to maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock, half an hour or so with family, and then 6 p.m. tonight to midnight, 1 a.m. was pretty much my life. You know, maybe 6 days a week for at least a year. It was pretty fucking intense. I mean, they talk a lot about, you know, you need to be willing to sacrifice to get yourself into business. You do, but for me, it wasn't a sacrifice, you know, financial terms. It was more around sacrificing family time. Which is too precious for some people to sacrifice. But, you know, sat down and had a chat with the missus before we set out and, you know, just had an honest conversation around if we're going to go for this, let's go for it. So made it work. Ultimately, you know, built the business up gradually with Barry over the last kind of 13, 14 months. And then the back end of last year, the twos were able to make that leap into it, you know, no longer being a side gig and something that's new a legitimate business that both of us are really enjoying running together.
Yeah.
How hard is it to make that jump? So mine was different. I didn't have to make the jump of career into doing it yourself. Like, that must be hard to pull that ripcord off a salary to then we're in.
Aye, like, I know it's quite cliche, right? You see a lot of things online about, like, the salary's the drug that they give you to dull you for. I don't necessarily buy into any of that, but there is some truth in when you've got a good salary, like I guess both of us did have. You've got your mortgage to pay, your life to run. Aye, there's an element of, fuck, what if we make this leap and then, like, you know, am I back to square one? What if I can't pay my mortgage? For me, I think that wee 3-year period that I had after British Gas really helped, because if it taught me anything, it's that I can get a job like that. You know, I really can. I'm not going to struggle getting work. So I think I just always had that in the back of my head that if I can't make this work, I'll get another job. Like, I might have a 1 or 2 month period where I'm in the shit a wee bit. And again, if I'm really honest, for me, there was an element of buying into Barry and his vision and, you know, his work ethic and going, actually, I trust him. He's a long time mate. I've known him for a long time. And, you know, I say this all of the time, but that period that he had where he was just running JMM on his own, diplomas, working full time, I would have gave up. There's no question that I would have gave up. I just don't have that in me. He just seems to have something inbuilt where nothing gets to him, Mr. Positive, you know, and that's probably came from his uncle to a certain extent, and the rest of his family by the sounds of things. But there was an element of me going, well, actually, if he's got himself through that, he'll never give up. So it was a leap of faith, but it was an educated leap of faith with a mate that I've known for a long time. So it's like, fuck it, let's get a bash. If we make an arse of it, I'll sleep under a bus shelter until I need to, and I'll get myself back on my feet once I've got a job. So
I'm sure our other halves and the girls might not be quite happy about that.
And I think, like, one thing I'd say on that front is that when you're starting a business or trying to get a business off the ground or trying to grow a business, you can't underestimate how difficult it is and how much you really need the support of the people that are around about you. If they don't support you, if they're non-supportive, they're nagging at you. Why are you working again? Why are you doing this? It's fine for that to happen in periods because sometimes it helps reel you in. But if that's the constant, it won't work. You need that support of the people that are around about you. And, you know, I'll not speak for any of yous, but I just can't speak highly enough you know, my own wife, my own wee unit, my own family that just done nothing but encouraged me, supported me, because I would never ever have been able to have the confidence to make that leap if I wasn't being constantly encouraged by them as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think obviously your daughter, and I've got 2 daughters now as well, a 6-month and a 2.5-year-old, and you know, I've not been full time in the business for that long really, you know, last year. But during that time when they're young and you've got a young family, you know, if you don't have that support network, you know, my partner's been great, you know, very understanding, but you can see the toll it takes on them.
That definitely,
you know?
takes a toll.
There's times where I know that you know, anybody who's running a business or building a business will understand this, but there are times where you're subconsciously, you are not there, you know, and my other half, Steph, bless her, she can see right through me. She knows how to pull me out of that hole, but there's times where you're so engrossed in what you're doing, and I think that can be a positive. It's a positive for me because I've got that trait where I can go into a really deep concentration. It's a negative to myself and the family because you get lost in it. So you need that support network, definitely, and you know, we're fortunate to have him, really.
Aye, definitely. So I think we'll wrap up there. I'll pass over to Barry, who's going to give a bit of a teaser on next week's episode.
Aye, thanks, Brian. So first and foremost, thanks very much, everybody, for listening to our first ever episode.
You made it to the end.
We've made it to the end. Not quite sure how, but we've made it. So next week, we're actually going to have our first ever guest on the podcast. So we're really looking forward to it. We're going to have one half of the duo on Strength and Movement, who are a health and fitness gym in Uddingston. So we're going to have Sean on next week, who's a co-founder. He's going to tell us about his story. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So in the meantime, everybody, if you can just subscribe, have a look at the social pages, hit a like on there. We'll keep you updated with, you know, next week's episode and when it's going to be out, and also just keep you in tune to everything that we're going to be getting up to.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Cheers, trips.